I'm not a person who can sit easily in front of a microphone and just talk extemporaneously. Up until this week I was quite an active user of AirChat. And as someone who has resisted social media, having perceived from a long distance what the externalities of Web 2.0 would be, when AirChat came along, I thought it had solved, for me at least, one of the fundamental problems that had prevented me from entering into the polluted, enclosed domains of various social media platforms. There is something in the primacy of the voice that is tonic to the lies of text, to the lies of images, the degradation, you might say, of our sight. It's certainly the case that a fatal blow has been dealt to the written word because of the tendency to use it expediently. If we don't disbelieve what we read, we certainly look at texts with some suspicion. And with all manner of deep fakes, static and kinetic, seeing is certainly no longer believing. I feel a deep mourning for the loss of literature and the loss of cinema as two fundamental art forms for interpreting modernity. And I think we are poorer for their loss. But in the place of it, the spoken word seems to be experiencing a renaissance. As a writer, a problem that I have been trying to wrap my head around with some urgency for the last 5 or 6 years is the realization that a fundamental transference of skills has to occur for my art form to continue. I have to move away from the page. I have to move into this extemporaneous world of orality, which I cannot occupy easily. I have to move away from my beloved allied art form of the cinema, of a beautiful synthesis between the word and the image, towards creating images that are purely in the mind of a listener, not exclusively through words. When we look etymologically at the word photography, we see that this word means writing with light. And by transference, cinematography is writing with movement. But if we consult the Oxford English Dictionary, we find that there is no such neologism as audiography. There is no word that has yet been coined to indicate writing with sound. And yet within the last year or two, the term voice note has entered the lexicon of English. The voice note something scribbled down in garbled language, fugitive, ephemeral. Torn off the digital memo pad and sent by mysterious electronic means to the ear of an asynchronous listener somewhere else in the world. That concept derived from literature, a kind of embodied literature, is a concept we are now familiar with. And yet a quick Google search reveals that there is no such thing as a Voicessay. We have notes scribbled with our voices. We do not have essays written extemporaneously with our voices. We think of an essay as a rehearsal of ideas that are designed to persuade and convince. More than a rehearsal, they are a laborious performance of ideas. Evidence is adduced, presented. If the writer of the essay is intellectually honest, they look at the counter to their argument and attempt to present that in a fair light. The essay is perhaps the most scripted form of non-fiction. But a secondary meaning of the word essay is attempt. It is trying to do something. it is an experiment, a rehearsal that may not be successful. Michel de Montaigne was one of the pioneering masters of the essay, but I don't think several centuries later we quite know what the technology of the essay is. To circle back to cinema and images, we now have video essays. Just as we have notes written on digital wave recordings and MP3s, we have essays written on MP4s and WMV files. So what I'm going to propose to you is an experiment, a trial, an attempt I am going to make. As one who is much more comfortable with the blank, the analog page. The slow time medium in which one may rehearse one's thoughts at one's leisure, prepare a performance, introduce the evidence, hopefully persuade and convince. Upon this blank conceptual space, the utterly abstract space of digital sound, I propose to extemporize and rehearse my thoughts for you. I do not know if this experiment will be successful, but that puts it in the nature of being an essay.